Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pacers Daily. I'm your host, Hery Acosta. Happy Friday, everyone. The week is almost done. You know what we have tomorrow? We got college football tomorrow. We got football on Sunday. Very fun weekend. Colts will be playing the Titans in Tennessee, so I'm very excited for that game. Like and subscribe. You know I post every Monday through Friday. This type of content, just bringing you news, any just free agency stuff that's going on. Now, once the season starts, there's going to be a lot more talking about what we can do as a team or like how we played a game and just stuff like that. But obviously, the season starts next month. So, for now, we're just going to keep talking about free agency and just some news that keeps coming out. But first and foremost, Delano Banton, I've talked about him before. I've talked about him as a potential free agent for the Pacers. He has recently worked out with the Pacers. So now we're just going to be waiting for him to either sign a training camp deal or anything like that. Banton's a good scorer. Outside of that, nothing else really jumps off the page. Now, he's more inconsistent than you would want him to be, but he has played on a few teams. He has been a good role player for all those teams between the Raptors, Blazers, and the Celtics. He's put up numbers. Nothing that really jumps out, obviously. But I still think he could be a good fit in our rotation. Now, we don't want him to really take a bunch of shots that, aren't good shots because that was kind of his issue with the Blazers. But we kind of just want him to really adjust and, help out players like Cam Jones or Taylor Peter. Just like the younger guys, be like a little bit of a veteran presence. Banton is still pretty young himself, though. And I just think that he could be one of those people to fight for a roster spot. I don't think he would be on the final roster, but it would be nice to see him in that training camp spot. Now, next and foremost, other teams are still very shocked about the Pacers' finals run. Now, to me, I don't understand this just because there was nothing shocking about the run. The Pacers genuinely just outplayed every team that they had played. Now, if this was like the Mavericks in 2011 when they won the championship, that was a lot more shocking than this one. The Mavericks had Dirk, but outside of Dirk, they had an aging Jason Kidd, an aging Tyson Chandler, and I say aging Tyson Chandler like Nowitzki wasn't older than Chandler, but their team was older. The Mavericks had an older team. They also had Jason Terry, they had Corey Brewer. Corey Brewer wasn't old. He was also the sixth man on that team. But that team, if you put that team next to the Pacers of 2024-2025, would the Mavericks actually beat the Pacers? I personally don't think they would, just because of the way the Pacers play their game. Very good three-point shooting, plus a little bit of a different era. During that 2010-2011 season, the three-pointer was still not where it's at today. So there's that. But there's really nothing shocking about the Pacers making the finals. I mean, we made the conference finals last year. And, yeah, last year was probably more shocking just because of, we were the sixth seed. And we ended up beating some pretty good teams. But this year, we were the fourth seed. So we were top four. We had home court advantage first round. And maybe the only really shocking one was us 4-1-ing the Cavaliers. I always thought we were going to beat the Knicks. I think we have better chemistry than the Knicks do, just because they had to kind of rearrange that completely at the end of the, off season, getting Karl Anthony Towns, trading away one of the Nova Knicks, and the Bucks stood no chance against us last year. In all honesty, that's even before Lillard was out with a Achilles injury. Now obviously he had that calf injury for a game, but I still wasn't worried about it whatsoever. So people can be shocked all they want, but this is Indy. Now, let's talk about our identity a little bit without Tyrese Halliburton, and it is a lot different than with Tyrese. We aren't going to be, we're not going to play the ball through our point guard every possession. Now, Nembhard has similar abilities to Tyrese. Now, he doesn't have the size. He doesn't have the flashy passes, but Nembhard's got heart and he's got defense and he's very good scorer. So what we lose with Halliburton is really a leader on the court, and that's the main thing that the Pacers got to find now. Which I think between Siakam or Nemhard, that would be great. But Nemhard is more of a quiet leader. Nemhard isn't very talkative, but he leads through his game, which is obviously something we want to see. And now we want people like Benedict Mathurin, Neesmith, and Isaiah Jackson to step up as much as they can in that starting lineup and just show that this team can win games without Halliburton. They can win games without Miles Turner. They can win games with this kind of new era that we're in. The Pacers are now going to be contenders for a long time if they continue to keep similar teams. Because we used to just not be contenders. We used to be lottery pick favorites every time. But now that we're contenders, there's a lot more expectations for us. Except this year. This year, there seems to not be as many expectations, which is why I believe the Pacers would do as good as they will. Just because the Pacers do better with no expectations than with expectations. And then last but not least, I kind of just want to talk about training camp. Now, I know I mentioned Banton earlier. Bring in a bunch of guys. Bring in a bunch of guys that you think can compete for a roster spot. Now, we know how training camp cuts work. A lot of players are going to be cut. I don't think anyone that's currently on the roster right now will be cut because we have 15 players that should be making the roster. But there's still a lot of players that we can sign. Some undrafted free agents, some of the lesser-known guys in the league, and then just some of the veterans that haven't gotten a roster spot yet. I talked about P.J. Tucker yesterday's episode. You could even bring in James Johnson just because why not? But, training camp's going to be fun. You get to see what other players are capable of, seeing who could suit up for the Pacers at all. Now, obviously there's going to be injuries. I'm knocking on wood hoping there's nothing crazy, but, every season there's injuries. So between 10-day contracts and just all those things that Pacers signed a bunch of people to 10-day contracts last year. When I say a bunch, I mean like Jahlil Okafor. Originally signing Tony Bradley to one before getting him for the rest of the season. But who knows? Maybe a player like Jahlil Okafor could end up on the Pacers again. You never know. It's just this is why I love free agency, even through September, just because there's still so many players not on rosters. Like Russell Westbrook isn't on a team. Ben Simmons isn't on a team. These are players that were all-stars in the 2020s at one point. And it's just kind of crazy to see that. But as always, I'm your host, Hery Acosta. This is Pacers Daily. Boom, baby. And go, Sirs.